towards the top. Shamnon, where it says oil, which is 6 lines in the top. Okay, now for you, let me find it for you. What? Yeah, there's some longer. Well, also this Gemara has longer block, but yeah, the first wide line here on right here, Shamnon. Okay, Shamnon, the oil of goyim. Milos Haras Hashemen. Who forbade the oil of goyim? Rabbi Lamar, Daniel Osers Hashemen. Rabbi said Daniel forbade the oil of goyim, as it says, Vayosem ha Daniel Alibo. Daniel put into his heart, Asher lo, he's goyim b'pas bagamel. He's no longer going to make himself repulsed by the bread of the king, or b'yein mishtav, the wines of his drinking. So wines is plural, so we darshan and the aser both wine and oil of goyim. Okay? Rabbi Yachon, Rabbi Tanchum, Barachia, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, V'Istar Milei, and some say B'Shem Rabbi Yeshua Levi, said named Rabbi Yeshua Levi, not named Rabbi Yochanan. Show you why? Sho'elim v'har melch v'ner rogim alav. Now there are two understandings of this. What this means. According to the Bnei Moshe, it means the reason they made the takon against the oil of goyim is because people are getting killed trying to procure it. There's a certain mountain where they used to go up and bottle in order to get it, and it was very fraught with danger, and they were killed going up there, so therefore they asked Shem and Akum. They forbade the oil of Akum lest people get killed in the process of trying to get it. So here they're going to be matur too. We're going to come to that in a moment. The other pshat, the Korban Eidos, seems to indicate that the reason why they were maturit is because people were getting killed in the process of trying to procure oil, which was not oil of goyim. It was very difficult at a certain time in the history of Israel to go and get to get Jewish oil, and therefore, since people were getting killed in the process, that's why they were about to be maturit. And who was maturit? To me, Tiro, Rabbi Beis Dino Yitur B'Shemen. The Rebbe and his Beis Din permitted the oil. Now, the Bavli, I believe, says it was Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah, Rebbe's grandson, but here it seems to be Rebbe himself who did it, who was matir oil. Ubishlosh Mikomos, in the 3 places, Nikra Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Rabosenu. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is called Rabosenu. Begitin, B'Shemen U'Sano, 3 places when he was permitted a prior Did Rabbanan, by get, by oil, and by sandal. Now, by get, it's the case is a guy who says, "This is your get if I don't come back with the next 12 months." It didn't say me'ayom, from today. It didn't say from today retroactively. So Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah said, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said, as long as the date of the get is written into the get, we assume that it's effective immediately, retroactively. Okay, even if it doesn't say me'ayom, from today. That's one. B'Shemen, that's the case we just said here, they allowed the oil of goyim. B'Sandal, what's that? No, that's what I would have thought too. It's talking about a woman miscarried and gave birth to something in the shape of a sandal. So that she doesn't have to keep, like a male and a female, 40 days, 80 days. She just assumes that it was not a fetus at all unless there's a defined or recognizable face on it. Now, ask more historical question. V'yikorlo Beis Sharia. Let's call him a permitting court, which I'm not sure if it's pejorative or not pejorative, but let's say he was let's call him Beis Sharia. You should call Beis Shuvim any basin which cancels 3 pre-existing takanos. V'nikra Beis Sharia is called a permitting court. So let's call him this permitting court appellation. on Rabbi Yehuda ben Rabbi Shmuel. So Rabbi Yehuda ben son Rabbi Shmuel said, based in the Cholkul Begitten. Although he wanted to be Matir Gittin, his base did not allow him to do so. So therefore, he only was allowed two of these three things, and therefore he's not called the base in Sharia. Okay, so it wasn't three things. I'm Rabbi Yehuda ben Rabbi Shmuel. I'm sorry, just read that. Rabbi Yochanan boy. Rabbi Yochanan asked a very, very interesting general question. How could the base of Rabbi Yehuda cancel the Gzeira say of Shemen Shalaku? Didn't we learn? Didn't we learn? One court cannot cancel the words of another court unless it's greater than it in wisdom and in the number of sages or the age of the sages, according to one understanding. So for Rebbe can Rebbe and his court cancel that which or allow that which Daniel and his group forbade? Daniel and his group were surely much greater than Rebbe, so how could Rebbe come and permit it? Elo Rabbi Yochanan kedaite. Rather, Rabbi Yochanan is like his line of reasoning. What's Rabbi Yochanan's line of reasoning? So he mentioned it this morning. Funny, nobody showed up this morning despite our advertising. I mentioned this morning, what we're about to say. Umar Rabbi Yochanan b'shem Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Tzadok. Rabbi Yochanan said, name Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Tzadok. Mekublani, I have a tradition. Shekol Gezeira Shebeis Gozim L'Tzibor. They ain't decree that a court makes against the congregation or the community of Israel. Lo kiblu rov Tzibor alein, and most of the Tzibor does not accept the Gzeira. Ain't a Gzeira. It's not a valid Gzeira. And here ubodku v'motzu. Here they checked out and found out Gezeira shel Shemen lo kiblu rova tzibur aleim, that the majority of the Jewish people never truly accepted by themselves the Gezeira against Shemen. So therefore the Takora became archaic and it was just dropped, even though the later base was not greater than the earlier base did. Is that clear? Mr. Zuger? Is it clear? As I mentioned this morning that Reb Moshe says about clapping and dancing, that even though it was once also, now it's mutter because it's become people don't keep it anymore. It's honored in the breach, to use the modern phrase. Yes, midrabanan. Yeah, at best it was made by Daniel, but it's not earlier than that. Okay? Yitzhak bar Shmuel bar Masa. Yitzhak, the son of Shmuel bar Masa, Nochas Nitzivin, he went out to Nitzivin. Ashkoch Rabbi Siloy have Dromi, and he found Rabbi Siloy from the south. Yossi v'Darish sitting in Darshaning. Rabbi based in Tiru Hashem b'Shemen. The Rabbi is based in permitted the oil. Shmuel kibel lavei v'achal. Shmuel accepted the heter upon himself, and he drank the oil of goyim. Rav l'achal. Rav did not drink goyish oil. Amalei Shmuel said, "Achol, you better drink the goyish oil." Locain, if you don't, on a ksivalach zokin mamre, I'm going to refer to you as a zokin mamre, as a rebellious elder, because against whom is he rebelling? No, not against Rabbi Yochanan, but rather Rabbi Yochanan had a tradition from Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and his basement. So Rav is rebelling against Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and his court. So it says more Amar Lei. So he said, Rab said, Adana Tamon, while it was still in Eretz Yisrael over there, on the Yadaman Irale, I knew who complained that the Gzeira of Shem and Akva should be cancelled. Rabbi Simloi Adromi. It was Rabbi Simloi from the south, but Rabbi himself never conceded to this. So the next word, Mao, I'm going to juxtapose two words. I'm going to change its positioning. This is on my own initiative. I think it should be Marley. So Shmuel responded to him, Mao, what are you trying to say? B'Shem Garmei? You think Rabbi Simloi Adromi made this up on his own? No. B'Shem Rebbe Ubezdino, he said it over the name of Rebbe and his Beistin. So therefore, Shem and Akum is mutter, because it wasn't just Rabbi Simloi on his own, but it was rather accepted by the entire tribunal. V'achachilave, Shmuel nudged him, nudged Rav, v'achal, until finally Rav ate the oil. Okay? When in doubt, nudge. Okay. B'nosayim. One of the further ones of the 18 decrees which they made at the time of that Shammai overpowered Hillel was against the daughters of Goyim. You're not allowed to intermarry. So ask more. Amar Belazar b'shiva mekoyim esksiv lo tischat pam. Says 7 times in the Torah, don't marry shiksas. What kind of takot is necessary, right? It's already on the books, right? Rabbi Yevon said those 7 times are not a riot because that's loser shiva amami. Those are to forbid the 7 nations which inhabited the land of Canaan. But I might say other shiksas are mutter. Too bad. That's why Rabbanan came and said tough luck. Okay. Tanner Rabbi Yeshua Unyo says, "Loser is peitzeim." You know, the truth is you don't need the takon Rabbanan to answer the daughters. They're also made a rice. You need the takon Rabbanan to answer their eggs, because you can't buy eggs from a guy because he might mix in non-kosher eggs. Right? That's what it means. It was not no same. It was peitzeim. Tana the Rabbi Shmuel says Vesbas Hayano. It says in the pasuk when it lists the trade birds, one of them is the Bas Yano. So Yanos, they don't got daughters. Why don't birds have daughters? Why don't birds have daughters? It's the riddle. Because they have eggs. It's not their daughter. I'm not making this up. That's what it means to say here. They have no true daughters. The true daughter is by a mammal. There's no daughter by fowl. What? Live-bearing. Right. So therefore he says, so what does it mean when it says in Torah, Basna Yano Azosar Zubeitza Sanamis, that's the egg of this specific bird, I don't know which one it is. Okay? Let's go on to the next talk. On the Shichva Zara, they forbade the Shichva Zara, the semen of Goy. Ask Gemara why. Look at Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Chanina, V'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Then we learn Rabbi Achsan, named Rabbi Chanina, named Rabbi Yochanan. Shichva Zara Shalakum Toira. The Zara of a Goy is tar. Why? Because it's likened to the Zara of an animal. Just like the seed of an animal is not tummy, so to the seed of a human being. It was a goy, it's not matamic. The fact that their seed is analogous to animal seed is why they don't have any parentage. Because they're considered to be not parents of their children based on the assumption that their zera is not human zera, right, but rather quasi-animalistic zera. So name it, so it says more. Asking Kasha. Right? So says the Gemara, no, you know it's not a kasha. Let's say where we aser is the urine. And since the urine invariably comes out with the zera, so therefore we aser the zera. Not because of it's any intrinsic problem, but rather because of the urine which comes out with it. Okay? They said about Keri can't learn Torah. That was one of the 18 xeros they made on that day when Yerushalmi overcame Basil. Rabbi Bar Bar Acha, B'Shem Rabbi said, "Shayna Alochs v'Nashon Agados." A person who's about Keri can learn Alocha but not Agados. So the Pnei Moshe says, why not Agada? Because it draws a person into the learning. It's exciting, and therefore he's going to spend more time learning. We don't want him to do so. My pshat would be different. I would say that we know that the reason why Baal Keri is not allowed to learn Torah is because of Kalus Rosh. Kalus Rosh. He's lightheaded and frivolous. So this lightheadedness and frivolity doesn't have such an impact on halachic sugyas. But Agada, which has to do with theology, a person has to learn that with much more of a degree of weightiness. Okay? Like we do. We learn everything very weighty. Tani. There's nothing in this world which we don't take with a severe sense of severity, gravity, and weightiness. Tani Hashem Rabbi Yossi. They said name Rabbi Yossi. Shone halachas roglios. You can learn the halachas that you normally learn, meaning stuff which is chazorah, even your Baal Keri. We're on top of Yudaf Harab. As long as you don't literally unpack or expand your mission of it, as long as you don't learn new things which require greater analysis. Mr. Boy Mema, some said you can learn whatever you want. As long as you don't mention God's name. Okay? Period. Next one. For the 18 takonos. On the laws that if you go out to Chutz La'aretz, it makes you Tommy or whatever enters Chutz La'aretz airspace. As for Rabbi Rabbi Zira bar Avuna b'shem Rabbi Yirmiyah. Then Rabbi Zira bar Avuna said to Rabbi Yirmiyah, Yosef ben Yoezer ish Tzreida, and Yosef ben Yochanan ish Shleim, which were far earlier in Hillel and Shammai. There goes the Tumah L'Eretz Amim v'Aklis Chuchis. They're the ones who decree Tumah against the non-Jewish lands and against that glass where it becomes Tameh. It was an earlier takana than the 18th days, which the students of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argued about. It was far earlier than that. So Rabbi Yoina says it wasn't Yossi, it wasn't these two, but rather it was Rabbi ben Taboy. Rabbi Yoina Amar Yehuda ben Taboy. Rabbi Yossi Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Taboy v'Shimon ben Shetach. It's Rabbi Yehuda ben Taboy and Shimon ben Shetach together. Gazu Tumal Klei Matchos. They decreed that metal vessels are Tomei. Now, obviously, metal vessels are Tomei Midaraisa. We're talking about where they were Tomei. You broke them and then you reforged them. So really, it should lose its Tumah Daraisa because at one time was broken. But they were gozer and they said since you did it all in one day, so people won't understand what's going on. So therefore, we have to ask for whatever you make and say it's Tomei D'Rabbanan. So that was the Tumah D'Rabbanan which they added on, right? So, the Tumah D'Rabbanan, again, that it doesn't fall off the Tumah which comes onto the clay matchos. If you're going to use it, even if you break it, if you fix it on the same day. You can fix it 6 months later. You can fix it even tomorrow, but you can't fix it on the same day. If you fix it on the same day, the old Tumah comes back. Okay, Midrabanan, not Midoraisa. Is that clear?
Midoraisa, if you break a metal vessel.
As long as it can't hold pomegranates. Remember, we had it several times. So. As long as you can't pomegranates. Says more further. We're at still on type of. So what about the next one? Hillel v'Shammai gosu al taras yadayim. Oh, all this is still part of the same thing. Hillel and Shammai decreed that you have to wash before you eat bread and stuff like that. So all that is part of the, all that seems to be earlier takanos. We just said that it's from the 18th, which the students of Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai made a decree not to go into Chutz La'aretz because you become Torah. If you go into Chutz La'aretz, you come time. It seems it was much earlier than that. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Bun, V'Shem Rabbi Levi said, Kacho, it was an earlier enactment, but they forgot. So since they forgot, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai students had to come and jog their memory. Okay? The later generations came and agreed. I don't know if agreed or so much as they realized or they were mechavin. I guess I don't know if you'd say mechavin in English. They struck the same chord as the earlier generations. Okay, were by coincidence. I mean, theological. It was divinely ordained, but they didn't necessarily realize that they were following the footsteps of the earlier court themselves. They coincided. Lamedcha, to teach us. Shekol davar shenoistim based in nafshon or love, anything which based in with is moser nefeshan. Here it's the original court, right? The original court, which I think it's the original court, which made the Gzeira Sopolis Kayon. Eventually, it will be fulfilled. In other words, it'll come back, even if it gets lost for a time. Some later generation will seize on that metaphysical opening which was made years earlier and reenacted, perhaps even without realizing that it existed previously, but it has a lasting eternal impression.
So it's Siyata D'Shmaya?
Yes, that's what I would say, Siyata D'Shmaya. Kamosh Ne'amar L'Moshe, as if it was said to Moshe at Sinai. Vas Yokai the Mara Imona. And that's like, this goes like Raimona said. What did Raimona say? Kilo Dava Reiku Mikeh. Torah is not a matter which is empty from you. Dava Reiku. And if it seems empty to you, in other words, if you don't fail to perceive the Torah properly, mikem, it's your problem, it's your fault. Lamahu, why is that? She'ein atem yigayim bo, you're not toiling in it sufficiently. Ki hi chayechem, because it is your life. Emos ha-yichayechem, when it's your life, the shot shatem yigayim bo, when you toil in it properly the way you're supposed to. Okay? Now, here's a very complicated Gemara in terms of Girsa. The Mashbiach basically erases Gemara and starts over again. I'm going to read to you from the Mashbiach, even though you don't have this Girsa. You'll be more or less able to tag along, okay? So just look inside and be lost if you get lost. I think it'll work out. Shmuel Amar Lo Shona El B'Toch Shmon Esrei.
So the other guy who wants to...
That which you have to have a basin which is greater than the previous basin in order to cancel an earlier takana is only in these 18 takanos, which are made by the students of Beis Shammai in the presence of Beis Hillel. Hachutz Shmona Esrei, if it's anything besides these 18 things, afilu katam vatal, even a smaller court can cancel. They don't need the same level courts. Hey Sivon, so they asked the Kasha, Hare Shvius, what about Shemitah? Shemitah, Hare Chutz Yurches Dover, that you're not allowed to plant to before Rosh Hashanah. Since Pesach, since Shavuos, not to plant before Rosh Hashanah. So that's an Issa D'Rabbanan, right? Hare Shvius, Hare Chutz Yurches Dover was beside 18 things. Ram Gamliel Beis Dino, he tiru Beis Shnei Prakim Yishonim. Ram Gamliel in his basin allowed the planting and the doing work in the two initial periods, meaning from Pesach and Shavuos until Rosh Hashanah of the 7th year before the 7th year commences. Rabbi Yonasan asked on this. Rabbi Kruz B'doi B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan Boila. Rabbi Kruz B'doi has the same question, name of Rabbi Yochanan. The low Kain Tanyon, that Rabbi Gamliel have done this. Then we learn Shem Basin Yochel Avato Divrei Basin Chavero and King Gon Menachach Minyan. You learn one basin can't cancel another basin unless it's greater in sagacity and in numbers. So the thing is, if Shmuel was right that outside the 18 things you can cancel, so to speak, at a whim. You don't even need to be greater the chokhmah of a minyan. So what are they asking? They're asking that how is Rabbi Gamliel matir shmita? He can't do it, right? Because he's not as great as the original court. But like Shmuel doesn't have to be as great. Why? Because they're not telling one of the 18 things. So the Yerushalmi doesn't answer this question. Just leaves it dangling. Okay.
That would imply that based in today could matir something.
We would have thought anyway.
If as long as it's not one of the 18 things.
Yeah, that would imply that. Sure, that would Shmuel would imply. Yeah.
But one of the 18 things that
well, because like the Gemara said before, there were Moser Nefesh on it here. Because Shammai and Hillel got into a major battle on this, so they're Moser Nefesh. So these things, since they're Moser Nefesh on it, they were particularly adamant and courageous about it. So therefore, you give them special stringency corresponding to the spirit in which they were enacted.
This idea of outside the 18 things, that wasn't in the Bavli, was it?
No, not to the best of my recollection. I don't think so.
So this opens up spots. Do the conservatives?
They don't know Yerushalmi. No, just kidding. You leave them in Yerushalmi. But hypothetically, it could open up a big Pandora's box. I'm sure, right? They need the Rabbanon, which is not made one of the 18 things could fall off. But we don't paskin this way. We paskin has to be Godel Chacham in the Rambam. Paskin has to be Godel Chacham Minyan. Okay, let's go further. Ask Rabbi Avram, are you still with me?
Am I with you?
No, yeah, because I'm reading out of the Mashbiach now, not out of the Gemara.
Yeah, I know.
Is it more or less the same?
It's almost the same.
Okay. Ask Rabbi Avram. Rabbi Avram came. And Rabbi Yehuda b'Shem Shmuel said, as well, the opposite of what we just said above. Lo shana, which is of course where we pass it. Lo shana el chutz liyurches. Now this is a very interesting thing. When does the basic Garab Chachma Minyan work? Only if it's beyond the 18 takonos. Ha besoch yurches, but within these 18 takonos, afilu gadol elo yochel avatel. In other words, here there's a special clause. It's ironclad. You can't get rid of these 18, even if you're greater b'chachma Minyan, even if you're more powerful. Why? Because they were moser nefesh for this one. There was even a Gerus of the Gemara, which we learned yesterday, Mr. Zuger, which said that they killed each other on this. That they had a sword fight on this. Yeah. And Beis Shammai was standing there ready. Well, it's not clear if they actually killed anybody, but they were standing there ready with their swords to protect these takonos. So therefore, since it was a momentous and epic occasion, so therefore it cannot be canceled. Okay? Rabbi Mona, like Rabbi Mona said, what do you have instead of Rabbi Mona here? Okay, it should be Kid Rabbi Mona. Like Rabbi Mona said before, that they stood there with their swords. Hey Tivun, so they asked, Hare Shemen B'Sok Shmona Esrei. Oil is one of the 18, right? Rabbi Yonasan Makshile. Rabbi Yonasan asked the question. Rav Kana Breder of Chia Barabba and Rabbi Yacha Matil B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said not Rabbi Yonasan asked the question. Rabbi Yochanan asked the question. Shemen Batlum Mevuto. Oil they canceled. How can they cancel it? Because it's one of the 18. And the answer Mishani. Do you have the word Mishani there?
I have no so. Only in a place. When do you not mechayev them in a place where they're not a class?
No, we don't have Shimshani. Okay, and the answer Lo Mistabra De Lo Hovu Onus Mevatel. Do you have that?
Right.
So where do you get it from? Yeah, it's Rabbi Mona. Okay, he went back. After Rabbi Mona, Lo Mistabra Do Elo Hovu Onus Batel. Do you see that? Before, okay. So he inserted that from above. He put it in over here. Okay. So lo mistabet lo elo hoyev onus umevatel. Meaning, since it was onus here means not what onus usually means. Onus usually means compelled, right? Here, I don't know if it means compelled. It means since the reality was such that people weren't keeping it, that's why it was canceled, right? In other words, when we say in the 18 things, ain't based in yochel avatel divrei based in chaver elin kain koro b'chach minyan doesn't work. That means that the base that comes to cancel it unilaterally. But it became archaic because nobody keeps it. It's not based in being mevatel it. It's the people. It's the takana itself is undermined, and that can even happen to Yud Ches Dover. That can even happen to the 18. Okay? Okay? Makes sense. Alright, says more further.
So, but that also is very dangerous. Because you could take about not intimate.
Well, that's I told you about Reb Moshe. It says about clapping and dancing that it became permissible because the people don't keep it anymore.
It's worse. Talking about intermarriage.
According to opinion, that's from the Yud Ches Dover. Right.
And people are doing it. 50-60% of the people are doing it.
It has to be Orthodox Jews, though. The majority of the Orthodox Jews, not the conservative Reform Jews. Okay. Nachman Bray, the Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani. This is in the 5th line from the bottom. If you have the 6th line from the bottom, if you have the Vilna Shas, do you have the place? Nachman Bar Nachmani. Nachman Bray, the Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani. B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani said. Interesting thing, I don't know, it comes totally out of left field. Chamesh chatos misos. We have halacha, we had several times in the Bible. There are 5 chatos which have to die. I don't remember exactly. Vlad chatos, tmuras chatos, chatos shemetzu ba'aleh, chatos shekipru ba'aleh. I think that's 4 out of 5. I forget what the 5th one is. Chatos shavda, right? One of them got lost and then you replaced with another one. Okay, so those 5 chatos, it's in the Bible, we starved them to death. Everybody remembers that, right? We starved these chatos to death. So it says, it's interesting, it says, Rotzu based on Levatali Vav Mevatli. This is a takon of the Rabbana. They basically want to cancel it and grant a lease on life to these animals. They could. That, however, there's a limitation what basically do. That which you said they can cancel the takana is shlo yidchul lemisa. People in the David that they shouldn't be cast aside to death, but rather he brought his karbanos, optional karbanos from his back. I'm sorry, but they can be sold. I apologize. They can be sold and their money used to buy optional karbanos from his back.
You don't make the deal.
But for them themselves to be sacrificed in Zech, ain't chatas misa krova. It's not possible to conceive that an animal that should have died should be brought on the mizbeach. That ad kedei kach we would never be matir. So even though we could be matir that they don't be starved to death, beyond that there's not. We would have to sell it and use the money to buy other korbanos. Okay.
I take it back about the intermarriage because you came about the raisa.
No, but that was the machlokas. We said could be no saying it's one of the takonas that the rice is only the 7 nations. There was a machlokas there, but there was opinion there was only 7 nations. All right, halacha. Beishamai or in Beishamai says ain't shoring diov sarmoni v'karshin. One cannot soak from before Shabbos ink or dyes or karshin, different types of animal fodder. Unless they'll be fully prepared from before Shabbos begins. If someone in Beit says you can allow this continue to soak over Shabbos. Okay, what's the machlokas? Umatame in the Beit Shammai. What's the svara Beit Shammai? 6 days you should work and do all your malacha. All of your malach must be finished during the day, in other words, before Shabbos begins. Share brachos? Did you speak?
Yeah.
Oh, say anything worthwhile?
Talk about walking cars or something.
Chasna?
Chuppah. Talk about breaking of the glass. Talking about.
We haven't gotten there in the Yerushalmi yet.
No.
All right.
But I did stick in yesterday's Yerushalmi about Anivus and the Kochel.
Okay, that's good. You missed a couple of important ones so far this evening.
Sticking a plug for Yerushalmi.
All right. Did they know what a Yerushalmi was?
They feigned knowledge of it.
Matame the Beit Shammai. What's the logic of Beit Shammai? 6 days you should work and do all your malacha. You have to finish all your work during the day. Means there's a halacha that all your work has to be finished, so you can't allow your dyes to soak into your wool on Shabbos, right? What's the logic of Beit Uvayom. Now the pasuk of course continues Uvayom Hashmi Tishbos, right? But we dash it 6 days you do malacha and on the 7th day, right? And Uvayom, and on the 7th day you can also do malacha as long as it began in the 6 days. Let's say you start your dishwasher from before Shabbos, or your washing machine from before Shabbos, right? Your urn, right? You can still go on Shabbos, right?
So what does Beis Hill do with the rest of the pasuk?
Good question. Oh, what? No, the word be. It could have said why it say Uvayom Hashvi? So they're dashing the extra word, right? Mama kaim Beishamai tamein the Beis Hillel. Oh, it's good. No, it's good. Mama kaim Beis Hillel tamein the Beishamai. How is Beis Hillel in the pasuk Beishamai? Sheish yomin tavo v'sisukam lachtecha. Says Beis Hillel ba'ivdei b'yodin. It's talking about handiwork. Handiwork has got to be complete during the 6 days. But stuff which you're not doing by hand, that you can continue to allow to go on the 7th day. What does Beis Shammai do with the pasuk Beis Hillel? Uvayom. That would say 6 days do you work and on the 7th day. So they make the same drasha, but they dash it for much more for a more limited set of circumstances. Like that which we learned, Poiskin Amas Amayim Lagina, Merev Shabbos. You can open the water canal into the garden from before Shabbos begins. Vehi Shoysa V'Lechos b'Shabbos continues to flow on Shabbos. Now, another case in this regard, Nosi Kiluri Salgab Ayin. You can put an ointment on the eye, Merev Shabbos before Shabbos. Vehi Mitzrah Peis Misrape V'Lechos Shabbos. So continue releasing the ointment on Shabbos. And yet another one, Nosi Retia Al Gabi Mako Merev Shabbos. You can put a plaster on your wound from before Shabbos. V'Mis Rapei V'Olechos b'Shabbos. Continue to heal on Shabbos. And yet another one, Nosi Mukvar Tachas HaKelim was allowed to put fragrance, incense on the vessels from before Shabbos. V'Mis Hashi V'Olchim b'Shabbos. They continue to be released by the smoke or the steam on Shabbos. And another one, Nosin Gorfis Tachas HaKelim Merev Shabbos is allowed to put burning sulfur or hot sulfur on the kelim from before Shabbos. Famous Garfim Olchim Shabbos, they could get the sulfur into them, which I think gives them a nice shine on Shabbos. However, Ein Nosnim Chitim L'Reichaim Shemayim. What is not allowed to put wheat into a mill, even a mill which is ground by water. In other words, by a waterfall. Unless they're going to be completely ground from before Shabbos. Why is that? Amar Rabbi Chagai. Rabbi Chagai said, "Mipnei she'mashmil says a kol," because it's loud. It sounds un-Shabbosdik to have a grinder, a millstone going on Shabbos, right?
So that's the whole question. Is there a hashmas kol? Is that really an issue in Shabbos?
It sounds that it's only Nisr according to Beis Shammai, though. It all sounds that way in the Bavli. We paskin there's an Isser of hashmas kol, even l'alocha. Why I forget exactly, but we do paskin. That's why we ask for microphones on Shabbos, right? Because of the loud noise. But it seems for both Bavli and Yerushalmi, since that's as far as primarily in Beis Shammai. It's only peripherally, if at all, in Beis Hillel. Like here, it's in Beis Shammai. That's why they ask for putting the grain in the grinder.
Same thing with the Shabbos clock turning on the radio. Right, well, Aaron said that.
Right. The question is when you have, a Shabbos clock.
You can't even having a TV on a Shabbos clock is not.
No, right.
The question is whether you can have your clock radio go on Shabbos, because it's not a loud noise. So it's not a loud noise. It sounds like a human voice. It's a little bit difficult to answer. The reason why we ask because it's not Shabbos-dik. But in a Chanami, hypothetically speaking, radio would be mutter. A silent radio, not silent, but normal, not loud, right? Not loud. Okay, so says the Gemara, Amalei Rabbi Yossi, Yos Rebbe Savak Rabbi Yehuda. This is that which you needed to say. The reason, the dichotomy between the grindstone and the rest of these cases is like Rabbi Yehuda. You have to say that dichotomy of the noise. But Ram, however, like the rabbis, like they say later on the second parak, they'll say the same thing here. It didn't begin in each and every drop. Now, this is a very important distinction. Let's dwell on this. Later on, we have in the second parak, we say it every Friday night. Those of you who daven Nusach Ashkenaz, used to daven Ashkenaz. You daven Ashkenaz, right? So Mamem Alikin, right? It says that you're lo yimali odam shofer shabitza v'yidnena b'tzar never shil shetei min atefes, right? So you're not supposed to put up a some say it's a beitza, it's an eggshell. Some say it's a reed, from a marsh. So you're not allowed to put it up next to your candle and have the oil drip down, right? And Rabbi Yehuda's matir. So what's the logic of Rabbana? So that's where we describe what's the machlokas. Rabbi Yehuda holds you don't need to have aschol in each and every kippah. You don't have to have each and every drop in the candle when you start, right? The burning can be on a, it doesn't have to be that everything which is going to burn is there. It can be dripping down. Rabbanan hold everything has to be there in the keli at the time that you start. So therefore, according to them, the dichotomy Beis Shammai will draw between a millstone and all the other cases is that a millstone, each piece of wheat drops in turn, right? Could be dozens at a time, but it's in sequence. That's no good. That's like the drops which come down in the candle. No good. You can't do that. It's only like Rabbi Yehuda that we have to draw a dichotomy and say millstones are also because of loud noises. Because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't see any prohibition in sequential malacha, right? He doesn't need huschal b'chol tipa v'tipa. He doesn't need that it already began. But according to Rabbanan, there's a very simple difference between the grindstone and everything else. That's also the difference between our Mishnah and say the opening of the irrigation canal from before Shabbos. In our Mishnah, the dye gradually accumulates in the garment, or the ink gradually softens. It's a ongoing process. Whereas in all the cases here, it began. It's hard for me to fully understand the distinction, even though I'm trying to explain it to you. I'm being honest with you. But here, in all these cases we just brought down with the incense and with the sulfur and with the eye ointment, so the object upon which it's acting and the agent which is acting on the object are fully in contact already from before Shabbos. It's not a gradual procedure. I don't know. I don't like that so much because it's not. I don't see how that's 100% true in each one of the cases.
It's like a linear progression. It starts out small, and as Shabbos continues, it gets bigger and bigger. The dye gets more and more intense.
Well, that's why it's usher, right? The case where it's not usher is where isn't linear progression. What's the opposite? Linear progression is such a nice fancy term. What would the opposite term be?
Sequential diminution. I don't know.
Okay. All right, but that's the idea, right? That's the distinction. In the case of Beis Shammai say mutter, case of Beis Shammai say it's osur. So Beis Shammai says case where mutter. Beis Shammai amel Beis Hilda. Oh, I skipped. Rabbi Yossi Bray Bunim Neishu Shocheach Shochav V'Tokeach. They said the reason we're not allowed to use a grindstone on Shabbos is because somehow there's some peg. I don't know exactly how it works, but there's some peg which you might peg in on Shabbos, and that putting in that peg is like boning. Okay, I don't know. I really don't know because I don't know. The peg is maybe it's the peg which holds the wheels together. You know, the millstone. Okay. Beis Shammai Beis Hillel davar echad. Beis Shammai said to Beis Hillel one thing, V'lo yochel hashiva, and Beis Hillel didn't have an answer. Beis Hillel amar Beis Shammai davar echad. Beis Hillel said to Beis Shammai one thing, V'lo yochel hashiva, and they couldn't answer. Beis Hillel said to Beis Shammai, "En atem moedim lanu, don't you concede to us? Shetoinim koras Beis Abad." That before Shabbos one is allowed to put the weights way down the beam in an olive press, or a gulei agas. The same thing with the clusters of grapes in the grape press. Im chashecha before Shabbos. How can you do that according to Beis Shammai? Lo yochlu la'ashivon. And Beis Shammai did not have a good response to that. They didn't have a good answer because there it's also linear progression, right? Each grape happens to turn, each olive happens to turn as the weight gets heavier and heavier. So they didn't have an answer. Rabbi Zira said, "Ilulei, were it not the low mali reishe ben ayevasa, that I wouldn't want to raise my hand among the lions. Havina maritaima, I would have said a shtickle Torah on this. I would have explained Beis Shammai. What would I have said? There, each and every drop is already moving. In other words, the pressure which began before Shabbos does have every drop on the run. And therefore that's okay. As opposed to the case of the dye is a linear progression. In other words, it gets deeper and deeper into it. I don't fully understand the distinctions. I guess I don't understand the physics enough of the case to understand it fully. But again, by the grapes and the olives, everything is on the move already the moment the weight is placed there.
Yeah, but I don't think that's true.
I just said I don't understand the physics of it. Okay, well, whereas by the case of our Mishnah, with the dye, so it's gradual, right? It's linear, as you put it before. Okay, that's the distinction he's saying. Says the Gemara, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel davar echad. Beis Shammai said one thing to Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel couldn't answer. On Beishal Beisilo, Beisham said to Beisilo, Ein atem moedim lo avonu, do you not concede to us? Shein solim basar, batzol ubeitza. You cannot roast an egg, an onion, a meat, an egg or an onion, unless they could be fully roasted from before Shabbos begins. Why? According to you, Beis Hillel, you should be allowed to do it over Shabbos as well. What's began before Shabbos? Should be mutter continue, right? Right?
That would be like Cholent.
Yep. Should be like Cholent. Lo echlu hashiva. On top of you, the Beis Hillel now. They had no response. Amar Rabbi Zira said, again.
These three items.
Hmm?
So it's over here.
You'll find out in a minute.
Rava says,
1 minute. Chapnish. Amar Rabbi Zira, Luleit lo mali reishe peinei arviyasa, where if not for the fact that I don't want to put my head among the lions, Havin on my time would say a difference. Tamon, Botzel, Bosa, or Beitza, Darkly Sapich. The reason why I don't leave it on is because what do you do with them? You flip them. Right. You flip them, you stir them, so therefore they're different, okay? Even Beisil concedes that you don't leave them on for Shabbos, not because you're not allowed to leave it on, but because you're afraid you're going to flip. Okay?
That's why you can't stir the Cholent.
Right, of course. Right, but there it's not, you're not going to, right, that's part of it. Here what are you going to say? In other words, in the other case, you don't have this problem. Rabbi Yehuda said, Nitzu kachilos ben drusoi. If the egg, the meat, or the onion was 1/3 cooked, asur. It's still us to leave it on for before Shabbos. Also, they forbade you to put on flame which is normally flipped on Shabbos on the range until it's fully roasted from before Shabbos begins. All right, Ramana said, nah. Lo mistabra da, it should be da ella, right? The law, right? Lo mistabra da ella mutter. That doesn't make sense. Rather, it's permissible. In other words, once it's machal ben drusoi, you're allowed to leave it there on the fire. Why? Dinun yachil meimar alone, because they could say, if not, what's Beis Shammai's question? What's Beis Shammai's question, Beis Hillel?
the only thing that Rava never said you don't buy it in halacha. He said it didn't make sense because it says about. So he had to learn it on
Yeah. Din Yochel Meimar, what Beis Shammai's question Beis Hillel be? Din Yochel Meimar alone, the Beis Hillel could have answered very simply. How can you ask us for something where you got to roast it off from before Shabbos? Basar, Butzel, and Beitza, and the dyes where you don't allow it to die before Shabbos. Again, we're usher to leave it on the fire unless it's fully roasted. So Beis Shammai has no question in Beis Hillel from this case. Beis Hillel would say, Hakmi Nishta Chainik. They didn't speak Yiddish, but they would have said Hakmi Nishta Chainik. They would say, listen, this is something which you would leave there because it's already fully roasted. Right? Oh wait, this question from Bisham.
Wait a second, the Mishnah's contrasting.
Oh, but Bisham is right. The Beis Hillel would say that's you can't leave it there because it's not fully roasted yet. You got it fully roasted from before Shabbos. You know why you got it fully roasted? Because you might otherwise flip it over, right? You're asking. That's not a zushtel to the case of the dyes. The case of dyes, there's no problem of flipping. That's why you're allowed to leave it there. Obviously, that would be a simple answer Beis Hillel would give. So it must be Beis Shammai asked a question. Beis Hillel couldn't find a response. It must be Beis Shammai asked that we know that halacha is that you're allowed to leave it.
This is the way to learn it.
1 second.
In place where there is no minhag to build it, you're not hired to build it.
Well, I knew it. I got it before. What's that? Yeah, I think I have it. Let me try it again. The question is like this. The question is, Beis Shammai said to Beis Hillel, I don't understand. How can you say you're allowed to leave it on before you're allowed to leave the dyes, and you're not allowed to leave the food on the fire, food on the flame, on the range? So Beis Hillel said, with the Beis Hillel, were you allowed to leave it only after it was fully roasted? Beis Hillel would say, what's the comparison? Their Chazal were afraid you turn it over. That's why they asked you to leave it till it's fully roasted. But by us, Chazal weren't afraid of that, so therefore you're allowed to leave it on while to leave it and continue to soak. Leave the dyes to continue to soak from before Shabbos. So it must be that in order for Beis Shammai to have a question which Beis Hillel couldn't answer, it must be a case, must be Chazal did allow you to. Still not working. 1 second. Okay, this is it. I got it now. In our Mishnah, it doesn't say you have to, it has to be a third dyed from before Shabbos. Doesn't say? Doesn't say it has to be a third dyed. Right? Why not? Why not? What? No, so if you're going to say, so this is the thing. If you're going to say that Beis Shammai, that you can leave it there once it's Machal Ben Drusoi, right? So then Beis Shammai is leaving what's about? I have it down pat. I just have to be able to articulate it. If you're going to say it's talking about a case, if you're going to say that the roast you can leave on the fire the moment it reaches Machal Ben Drusoi, but not before. So Beis Shammai is asking Beis Hillel, I understand.
I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm sort of
That, no, Beis Shammai is Beis Hillel, I don't understand you. How, if there by the roast you agree that it has to be at least Machal Ben Drusoi, why are you leaving it on? Why are you even leaving the dyes, even if you put it on a moment before Shabbos? How can you, why the distinction between the two? And Beis Hillel would have no answer. But if in the case of the roast, you can't leave it on unless it's fully cooked. So Beis Hillel has a punch answer. They'll say, I'm afraid you're going to flip. In other words, after Machal Ben Drusoi, there's still a chashash you're going to flip. Right? After it's fully roasted, there's no chashash you're going to flip. So if you're going to, so it comes along and says, it must be that it's mutter to leave it on after Machal Ben Drusoi. Because then the question is a valid question. The question is, there's a chashash you're going to flip, yet nonetheless you're allowed to leave it after Machal Ben Drusoi, but only after Machal Ben Drusoi. So too, here there should be some minimum shiur, which you're allowed to leave it out, it must be dyed before you're allowed to leave it in the vat over Shabbos, right? Just like over there. And Beis Shammai will give a minimum shiur. In the next Mishnah we'll see such a thing, that there's a minimum shiur. That makes sense. The Beis Shammai would have a good question, but there's no answer. How come you give a minimum shiur by the roast beef, and you don't give a minimum shiur by the dye? But if the shiur by the roast beef is not a minimum, but a maximum, it's got to be fully cooked, because we're afraid Shema Yahapich. So Beis Hillel has a very good answer. Beis Hillel will say, there's no minimum shiur by the dye, because by the dye there's no chashash of Shema Yahapich. There is a minimum shiur by the roast beef, not just a minimum shiur, a maximum shiur. It's got to be fully cooked, because otherwise we're afraid you're going to turn it over. It makes a lot of sense. It's very good now. Okay, one more time. If you're going to say like Beis Shammai, if you're going to say that it's after Machal Ben Drusoi, you leave it on the fire, so then Beis Shammai is a good question on Beis Hillel. The question is, why here to give a minimum shiur, Machal Ben Drusoi, why here not? Here you can put it in the dye in the vat the moment before Shabbos. There should be no difference, right? Yet here, but if you're going to say that the shiur by the roast beef is fully cooked, because we're afraid Shema Yahapich, right? So then there's a major distinction. What's the major distinction? The major distinction is precisely the fact that Shema Yahapich. Beis Hillel would say, here I have no minimum shiur because I'm not afraid you're going to do anything. You'll just leave it there. Here I have a maximum shiur because I'm afraid you're going to turn it over. So thereby not even Machal Ben Drusoi is good enough. You have to wait till it's roasted. Okay, very good. Next Mishnah. Beis Shammai ain't nosim. Now here's Beis Shammai coming towards Beis Hillel a little bit, as you just mentioned. Beis Shammai ain't nosim unishal pishton l'toch tanor. One is now allowed to put strips of flax into an oven. El kadei she'afilu mibod yom. This is the bleach them. I think it's the bleach them. Yeah. To bleach them. They have to get a little bit hot from before Shabbos begins. See, it's like the Machal Ben Jusoy. It's consistent. It's like the Machal Ben Jusoy. It has to be a shtickle done from before Shabbos. You know, it has to be already gotten hot. V'lo setzemel yura, nor are you allowed to put the wool into the dyeing vat, unless there's enough time for it to already absorb a substantial amount of dye before Shabbos. Beisil Matir and Beisil say it's mutter, even if you toss everything right in right before Shabbos. That's sufficient. Okay?
Now, for destroy, you could theoretically eat.
What?
You could theoretically eat a machal ben destroy, even though it's only 1/3 cooked. It is cooked enough that you could eat it. The vat, the dyeing vat, where you're putting in, I don't understand. There is no shiur. It's not a finished product. It's not even 1/3 finished. You can't use that material for whatever you want to use it for.
Right. The problem with Machal Ben Jusoy though really is not it's not a Shabbos issue. I mean, if you put something up to cook for Shabbos, you're never going to be chayiv d'oraisa. The question is whether it's mechsek and mevashel, and Chazal made a gzera against it, right? Looks like you're cooking on Shabbos. So, but here they didn't make that takana. Am I making myself clear? The problem Machal Ben Jusoy is a separate one. It's not one which is required for the direct prohibition of cooking on Shabbos. It's kind of a Marasayan issue. Whereas here, there's no kind of Marasayan issue, right? Because people are not going to think you're dying on Shabbos. You went down to the vat, so therefore they didn't put the shiur according to Beisil Machal Ben Jusoy. All right, I guess the kitchen is more exposed. I don't know exactly where. People are always in the kitchen. They're looking and they're watching. But by the dyeing vats, people are not going to have that kind of focus. I'm just giving that as a hypothesis. Why? But you're obviously based on the whole issues are different. Okay, Ma'al Misani. What good does it do if it's a little bit dyed? You know, it's not fully dyed. It's like a Machal Ben Jusoy by dye, right? What are you going to do with a Machal Ben Jusoy by dye, right? According to Beis Shammai, you're asking the question, right? You were asking on Beis Hillel. I thought you were asking on Beis Hillel why Beis Hillel doesn't require a Machal Ben Jusoy by.
No, I was asking.
Oh, you were asking on Beis Shammai what it does? Oh, I'm sorry. So that's for the Gemara's question. Ma'al Misani, Amrei Avokon Ilay Kurai. It's like the Kurai people from Kura. They don't care. They don't need fully dyed begodim. They wear partially dyed begodim. What?
Like a tie-dye.
Tie-dye, right. Rav Yehuda B'Shem Shmuel said, "Bushate Yura Kura." You can leave the stuff in the vat, but the vat has got to be off the fire. You can't be heating up the dyes. Avlima saw call Yura Kavua. If the vat was fixed, Asura, it's also. Why? Because if the vat is on the fire, we're afraid that maybe the dyes will get boiled away. V'mosif moi, and will come to add water on Shabbos, which is, of course, this is the right so. Shul Shariavo says, Beisil Yofan Melechus Heter, Mi Melechus Isser. Beis Hillel, what is a funny story? I really don't know what to do with this. Beis Hillel says that you learn out that which is mutter for that which is asur, meaning ilu asur because came to Shabbos shemeinu asur. If you put it on Shabbos on the fire, is it not asur? Of course it's asur, right? Kavasa asur kemibod yom mutter. Whatever which you do on Shabbos to be asur, as long as you did it before the Shabbos began, it's mutter. So they learn out the heter from the isser. Whatever is completely asur on Shabbos is completely mutter before Shabbos. And therefore, you're even allowed to leave it on the fire. Even on the fire. I don't get the logic either. It escapes me. But the advantage of Daf Yomi is you don't understand one thing, you go on to the next thing. Beis Shammai says, "Ain't person mitzudas chayav v'oifus." One cannot spread nets to catch animals and fowl, to dogim and fish, unless they're going to catch the animals from before Shabbos begins. But actually Yontif here, because on Shabbos, what are you going to do with the animals, right? So it's talking about Yontif, and you're going to shech them on Yontif. But it still says mutter. Mimodia. Who's going to have? How does he know if it was caught before Yontif? Right? So if the net is ruined, Dover bar, you know for sure she needs to. They used to have very long nets. We learned this in the Bible. You have very long nets, miles long. So you could tell. So the question is, how can you tell? Maybe something a mile away was only caught on Shabbos. So the thing is, though, once something got entangled somewhere along the net, you could tell even further down the line that there was an entanglement later on. So you check right before Yontif, and you'd see there was something tangled up somewhere in the net, and you know there's something caught, and you can line that to shecht it on Yontif, right? The notice calculum, so that the net was not ruined for before Yontif. Dover boyish lo needs something beyond yom. You know it was not caught from before Yontif began. Ask Gemara about this calculum mitzuda. Even the net was ruined. Maybe this animal was not caught from before Yontif, right? In other words, maybe some animal was caught before Yontif, but how do you know that this one was, right? Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yisrael very good. But Purshas,
when he does do tshuva,
no, that's not what the Gemara's question is. No, it is the Gemara's question. Yeah. So it says more, Amar Yisrael Bun B'Pursas B'Churshin. This is where it's spread in a forest, and there are a lot of animals there. So mistama, whenever you spread the nets, animals already got caught 1, 2, 3 throughout the net. So I say the net was probably maxed out from before Yontif began already, because there's such a proliferation of animals. You should know this is true. That Dogim spoke about the fish in the Mishnah as well. The dog in low makom shem fish. Where do you fish? You go to fish in the Dead Sea. You go to fish where there are fish. So the net fills up right away. The carbon makom shchayv open sea. So it's about a case where the animals and the fowl are prevalent as well. Rabbi Chia b'shem Rabbi askin lehalein. It should be lehalein, not lahalacha. It's Pei Moshe Korei say Allah the Mashbiach says lehalein. Rabbi Chia b'shem Rabbi asking la'alein, he made a takana for those who sovereign meimar, who mistakenly thought mutarin l'machar. They thought if you catch the animals when they mutar the next day, meaning after Yontif. You have to wait b'chtei shiyasa. You have to wait till the next day, till after Yontif is over. He told them it's not true. Rabbi Chizka Berei, the Rabbi Uzziah Berei, Rabbi Charunia. The Vras Chavron say mutarim mamish. They're mutar mamish, meaning they're mutar today. You know, you check them on Yontif. Don't you have to wait till after Yontif? You could check them on Yontif. The people who thought otherwise, they're making a mistake. Okay? Sorry, members, feiko. They thought to say only a suffix is mutar, and this, in other words, if it's in other words, suffix. Well, I'm reading that wrong. Simon Sfeiko it's here that is suffix whether it's from yesterday or today is mutar. Rabbi China Rabbi Yonah suffix kachin aser, and that was a machlokas. Rabbi China Rabbi Yonah both said if it's a suffix whether it was caught from before Yontif or not, it's aser. Rabbi Yochanan suffix kachin, if it's suffix caught from before Yontif or not, it's mutar. Rabbi Chia Ruba and Rabbi Shimon Rebbe had a similar machlokas about a different topic. If you get say from a goy on Shabbos, do you have to does it have to be designated from before Shabbos or not? In other words, maybe you take a goy gives you a present, an orange on Shabbos. You have to be chayshish. Maybe you pull it off the tree on Shabbos, or you're just allowed to eat it. Okay, that's the question. By a goy, that's a muchar or not? One said yes. The other one said by a goy, I just take it from him. I don't have to be concerned. I don't know who said what Rabbi Chia said, what Rabbi Shimon Rebbe said. Min mad Rav Ma'ane. But from this mice I know. Once Rav was Ma'ane, meaning he came late to shiur. Ma'ane Meisi Kumi Rabbi Chia Ruba. He was late coming from Rabbi Chia the Great. Vu Amar Lei, so Rabbi Chia said to him, Hey Navisa, where were you? Vu Amar Lei, Rabbi Chia said, Shayrosa Havasavra. There was a caravan passing by. It was a Yontif or Shabbos, I don't know which one. But a caravan was passing by, and I got some fig seed from them. And it was Shabbos or Yontif. Have a who, so it must be, since he told us Rabbi Chia, and Rabbi Chia didn't rebuke them for this, must be Rabbi Chia, must be an array who do Amar, ein akum tzorech alchein. He must be the one who holds that from a guy you don't need to be muchan. Right? You just take it from the guy, you don't have to concern yourself whether it's muchan or not. Chad Tami Mitzimoy, a certain student of Rabbi Simoy, Azalant Virus. He went to see it on Virus. Vaisenle Darm Sikna, they brought him some sort of fruit for Achel. He ate from the Goyim. The Chad Tami and Rabbi Shimon Levi, another student from Rabbi Shimon Levi, also the Talmud, he went to the same place, on Virus. Vaisenle Darm Sikna, they brought him this fruit for Achel. He didn't eat. Vasa Markumi Rabbi. He came to his Rabbi Shimon Levi and said, hey, that other student, he ate. Amalei, he said, do noi kishitasid Rabbi Simoy. He holds like his Rabbi, like Rabbi Simoy. Rabbi Simoy Amar, ein akum tzarech by a goy, from a goy, it doesn't require achana. Rabbi Avol b'shem Rabbi Shimon Levi said, dam demnoyel shebakerem arelu asurim. These are grapes which are brought from the field. And if they're brought on Shabbos, we're afraid that they were plucked today. I guess they used to pluck them on the same day they were ready. It's not clear exactly why. Vilna B'Shem Rav said, Shatim shebekapim arelu mutorim. To a certain type of date, which was, when even it's brought on Shabbos, Mistam was harvested before Shabbos. So even Manam said, so you can assume that it's from before Shabbos, and you can eat it, and you don't have to worry whether it's muchan or not. So bottom line is, you don't have to worry from a goy whether it's muchan or not, unless it's something where the normal derech is for not to be muchan, in which case, of course, you have to be chayshish. We'll stop here for this evening.